Alright, Peace Ingredients YouTubers. Pepsi, what y'all doing? We're just a little confused as to what it is you all were aiming to get accomplished with this commercial, okay? Bad enough, y'all just got off probation with a lot of people for what y'all did to Michael Jackson, okay? Because y'all are the reason that man had to wear a wig the rest of his life, okay? It was y'all Pepsi commercial that burned off the whole back of his head, okay? He got burned messing with y'all. There might have been some days Michael Jackson just wanted to have a fade, or a low haircut, or some waves, or just something real simple, but he couldn't do that because all this was missing, okay? He always had to wear a wig. That meant he had to put that thing on when he went to go dump the trash, walk the dog, water the grass, get the mail, okay? That's a lot of effort, okay? He doesn't get a bad hair day because he don't really got that option, or he didn't have that option. So Pepsi, that was on y'all. So I thought y'all would have chilled after that, but then you came up with this commercial. So let's jump into it. Rest in peace, Michael. It's bad enough Michael had to put that wig on so tight when he'd go on stage because, you know, it needs to stay in. And, you know, Michael was doing all the acrobatics and the jumping and the this and the that. Okay, that's a lot of stress on somebody. So y'all need to write an apology letter to the whole family. I just want y'all to do that too. Anyway, I don't know if you've seen this commercial, but in this specific commercial, long story short, this is the scenario. There's some kind of protest going on. We're not really sure what the protest is about because it's a very whimsical protest. Everybody's in a good mood. Everybody's happy, smiling. It's very euphoric. It's lots of signs that say peace and love. And woo, it's just, you know, there's people dancing. I'm like, what kind of protest is this? You know, I'm not really one to do a lot of marching and protests, and I've only been to like 2 or 3, and I've already said I'm never going to any more again for my various reasons. You can actually look on my channel and see why I said that. But with each protest I went to, it was about a really specific cause. Usually it had to do with the police killing somebody in our community. And it's a very emotional environment where everybody's outraged and mad and this, that, and third. There wasn't a celebration of people high-fiving and breakdancing at all. But anyway, so everybody's marching and having a good old time, and it's just a grand spectacle. It was more of a parade. They're having a parade, and then the camera pans to Kendall Jenner, who's in the commercial. There's also another woman. I'm not sure exactly what they were trying to get accomplished with the photographer, who I'm guessing was supposed to be Muslim, and she was having a hard time with the stills that she had in her little studio, so she decided to go out and protest as well, because something just made her go, ah! And she went out there too. I'm not sure exactly what they were trying to portray with that, but they lost me somewhere with that. But anyway, so the parade is going, the Macy's Day Parade is going, and you know, they just had the big Clifford the Dog balloon go across, and Kendall Jenner is shown. And I'm not sure if she's playing herself, but whatever she's playing, she's supposed to symbolize somebody in fine arts or somebody in entertainment. So she's supposed to be like a model. She's doing a photo shoot. She actually leaves the photo shoot because she makes eye contact with somebody in the protest, which that confused me a bit because it looked like it was kind of like they had a crush on each other, and he was like, you know, come join us at the same time. And she's like, okay, you look good too. I'll be on my way. And, you know, she joins the protest. And so, you know, she leaves the photo shoot, she rips off her wig, and that was supposed to be symbolic of something because they had the camera pan to her face and she put on her serious face. So I thought she was about to like really go and do something. Like I thought she was about to throw a brick or something, I don't know. But, you know, she goes and she's marching and, you know, she's marching and just smiling. And it's kind of like I got this, guys, I'm going to fix this. And she grabs this Pepsi and she's walking and she goes to that police barricade where all the police are lined up to kind of stop the protesters from going to wherever they're going. And, you know, she gets that Pepsi and she hands it to the officer. He takes it, he drinks it, and then I guess because he liked it, he just made a face of approval, and then the whole crowd just, yeah, and they lived happily ever after. That was the commercial, pretty much. And so I watched it and I was like, I'm lost as to what I was supposed to get out of this. Because then when the commercial ends, it says this part where it's like, be bold, live to the max, or something like that. And so here's a few of the issues I have with the commercial. One, when you talk about just the words that were stated in the commercial as far as be bold, live to the max, I don't know if that was the actual words, but it was something like that about being bold. I think Pepsi would need to take their own advice. When it comes to what's going on in the world, here's my issue. Currently, there's a lot going on socially in this country. Whether it's the issues that the Native Americans are dealing with, coming from the government and everything like that. Native Americans are really going through it. It's kind of something that's not in the media. Of course, Black Americans, we're dealing with all kind of stuff, okay? One, you got the police brutality and everything else that's going on, and then you have the Flint thing going on with the water. You have the Dakota Access Pipeline going on. You have the random aggression towards immigrants. You have the aggression towards the Latino community. You have Islamophobia. You still have homophobia. You have the socioeconomic warfare that's going on against poor people. You have the attack on education. You have the attack on clean air. You have the attack on good food. It's just an attack on everything. And with all of those different instances, I don't remember Pepsi being bold or living to the max and making a statement about any of that. And if they did, it wasn't to the caliber of them getting a commercial with Kendall Jenner in it. Okay, maybe they may have made a little statement on their website or something. But let's be honest. How many of you guys just randomly took time on your Thursday after work to go to Pepsi's website, just randomly look at it? Hey Greg, have you been on Pepsi's website? Yeah, they have a statement. You might want to check it out. Like, none of us have done that. So I wouldn't know if Pepsi had anything going. If they did make any kind of bold statements about some of the things going on and they took a stance on something, I don't know about it. And if they did, they didn't make an effort to make it well known. They did it real under the table because they didn't want to piss off people and didn't want to lose stakeholders and consumers. So, one, I'm like, take your own advice, Pepsi. And we can be really honest, Pepsi in the past has made some kind of political statements, but they've done it in a way where it was always really, really subtle. So if you look at the whole "You're in the Pepsi generation" movement, which was like in the 60s, the "You're in the Pepsi generation," and then they kind of rehashed it when Britney Spears did like her Pepsi commercials in like 2001. That was kind of something that was going on. That's around the time period where there was a generational divide in the 60s because you had the whole little flower power movement going on. And that generation was a little bit more outspoken than their parents. They were against the Vietnam War. A lot of them were really against what was going on when it came to the Jim Crow laws and the abuses that were going on to black people. And there was a lot of things they were fighting for. And so Pepsi kind of made their way of doing it. It was like, okay, we're kind of aligned with you a little bit, but we're too scared to say it. So you're a part of the Pepsi generation. And the Pepsi generation was supposed to be a generation that stood for, equality and fairness, and the Pepsi generation was also the cooler generation, which I think is what they were trying to do with this commercial, because this commercial is very marketed to younger audiences, that whole 25 and down crowd. And so, yes, I was like, Pepsi, take your own advice. The next issue I have is one, Kendall Jenner. I have no beef with Kendall Jenner at all. I don't really follow her. I don't know a whole lot about her. I just know she's in that whole Kardashian clique, and I think she's a model. But the issue is, somebody like Kendall Jenner is the face of a very superficial ideology when it comes to imaging in the United States and just pop culture and in the world, honestly. And I don't think she is someone that you would want to represent, the idea of fighting towards something or fighting against a larger system, because, not to go there, I don't remember her standing up for much. I don't remember her saying a whole lot. And there's a lot of people who are looking up to somebody like Kendall Jenner for things that have nothing to do with today and tomorrow, more so all imaging and self-esteem and stuff like that, which is cool. But for what Pepsi, I don't know what they were trying to push, but when it comes to social issues, she's not that person you'd want to put as that face. And I know that she's kind of, she's really popular with the millennial generation, and maybe that's why they used her, but it's kind of like bad casting. And so my beef isn't even really with her, because she didn't write the script, and I don't even think even if she was in the meetings and they told her what she's going to be doing, she doesn't seem like the type to be aware of what's going on around the world enough to understand the context of when something is in bad taste. When something isn't really going to come off very well. For her, it's a check and it's an endorsement. It's Pepsi. Let me get my few million, I'll be on my way. That's how I looked at it with her. But the other thing that I found interesting is, even in the commercial, Kendall Jenner is playing into that very same role that I just talked about as far as that whole superficial ideology when it comes to imaging. She's playing a model or an entertainer or something, and the way that it's presented is like, oh, you all are marching, but I'm taking my photo shoot. I guess I'll stop because there's a guy I saw that was so cute, so I guess I'll stop. And, I'll go out there real quick. Let me go ahead and give this Pepsi to him and I'll fix it. And the way, which goes into the next part, which is like, I'm so confused as to what her handing the Pepsi to the officer was supposed to symbolize. Like, I hope that didn't mean that fixed everything. You know what I mean? Like, I could really, really go in on that, and I could give you a whole 20 minutes on just that alone, why I have an issue with it, but we're not going to do it today. But this is what I will say. All right, to me, that represents a narrative that's told to a lot of people who are in positions when they are either oppressed or offended at something. And what that message or that narrative is, it's always, you just have to give more love, or you just have to, look through the eyes of the other person. And the problem is, y'all always put the burden on the wrong party. All right? This reminds me of when the rapper Common had made that statement about race relations in America, and he was like, if you want to fix the racial divide in America, black people have to extend a hand of love to white people. And I'm like, see, this is the problem we have now. Like, one, let's be honest, the black community has always been very loving to everyone, but the black community has gotten burned by pretty much everybody. And now that the black community is very protective of themselves, their culture, their imaging and everything else, and they're reactive, and they have a right to be mad because of all the atrocities that have happened to them since they got off the ships, you can't put the burden on us to fix racism in America. I shouldn't have to break my neck to extend a hand of love to people who don't, who could give two F words about anything. Okay, that's like, that would be like, okay, Donald Trump going and doing all the stuff he does. That would be like us telling people who are Muslim, you all need to extend a hand of love to Donald Trump, and he might let you stay and come back in the country. Or telling people in the Latino community, just extend a hand of love to Donald Trump, and he might not deport all 12 million of you who aren't supposed to be here. Like, stuff like that. Like, that doesn't add up. And so for me, that's symbolic of this ideology where people tell you, or tell the offended or the oppressed group of people, that the burden is on them to fix. Oh, just change yourself. It's kind of like when I make some of these videos, and a lot of my videos are very oriented around social issues and race and everything. And every now and then some stupid person will come in the comment section and they don't like that I said something about something that's going on in the world, because they look at everything from an individualistic standpoint. Whenever I talk about anything, and even with my ideas with this commercial, I'm looking at everything structurally. Alright, so when you talk about, most of the times when I'm talking about race or anything like that, it's always from a structural standpoint. And it's based on the history and facts of whatever. And somebody will come in and say something like, well, you know what? Michael Jackson wrote a song called Man in the Mirror, and I think you need to look in it sometimes. Like, what? What does that got to do with Eric Garner getting shot? What does that got to do with Tamir Rice getting shot? What does that got to do with Sandra Bland being shot? What does that got to do with did I say Tamir Rice? Tamir Rice, Trayvon Martin, Jordan Day, like all these different, what does that got to do with that? That has nothing to do with me looking in the mirror. I can just look in the mirror all day. They're still getting shot every 28 hours. You know what I mean? So, that's how I saw it. It was kind of like her handing the officer that Pepsi was supposed to symbolize her, because now all of a sudden she's now the face of all those protesters, her extending love to the officer. And I'm like, it doesn't work that way. And the other thing is, then by the officer liking it, all of a sudden that made everything better. Everybody was happy. I'm like, can we be honest? Because slaves were feeding the slave master every day. The slave masters were eating real good. They still treated the slaves like shit every day. All right? And even when slavery was over and we got into the 1920s, and all these people who used to either be slaves or their family members were slaves, now they were all maids. All right? They were still feeding them and feeding the white people that were paying them very well and everything like that. And then the funniest part is, then when it came to getting in the pool, black people weren't allowed to get in the pool or drink from the same water fountain or sit at the same restaurant or do anything like that. Yet they were willing to eat after us. That's what I don't get, okay? Because this is before the days of Pillsbury, all right? So when you were making them biscuits, you had the dough and you were mashing that stuff in your hands for real, all right? And you pass it right to whoever you were working for, and they ate it. But for some reason, you put your finger in the same pool there, and the whole pool got to be evacuated. They got to drain it out. They got to refill it. They got to close the pool down for the day. I don't get it. Y'all understand that? Figure that logic out for me, because I don't understand. Anyway, going back to my point. That symbolizes that imaging of her just handing the Pepsi and everybody just laughing and being happy. I don't get it. And it's kind of like when people pretty much try to brush over the issues that exist in society with the whole idea of love and peace and let's come together. We can do that. I can't wait to get to the love and to come into peace and kumbaya portion. But before we get to that, it's always important to tackle the actual structural issue that's affecting everybody. And that's the issue I think most people have with this commercial, because Eric Garner wasn't able to give the police officers a Pepsi when he got choked to death. All right? All those people at the Dakota Pipeline who get beat up and shot with beanbag and pellet guns and all that stuff, they're not able to just give a Pepsi to the construction man with the bulldozer to stop him from doing whatever he's doing. Stuff like that. It doesn't work that way. And so that Pepsi to me is symbolic of the BS that we're spoon-fed in this country. Like, many Americans are just not aware of what's going on. They're not. There's so many things going on socially, but because it doesn't affect them, they're on another planet, and there's no correlation with them understanding what goes on. And so what they do is they have these very one-size-fits-all mentalities or solutions to issues that don't actually work. And it's because they're seeing it from the wrong lens, because they can't even see through the perspective of those who are offended or oppressed or dealing with something that they're fighting against. And that's what that commercial symbolizes for me. It makes me question who was in the boardroom during that advertising meeting when they were putting the script together. Like, I want to know what the diversity ratio looks like in that office, because I can guarantee you, had they had some multiple perspectives and characteristics and people from different cultures in that room, that commercial would have never saw the light of day because it's done in poor taste. Even though I can tell that they were trying to do something that would bring people together, it came off the wrong way, because if you're not well researched about what's going on, it comes off wrong. And most people are pissed off because the imaging is so reflective of a lot of the whole Black Lives Matter protests and a lot of the anti-police brutality protests. That's what it looks like to a lot of people. And people feel that you're capitalizing off the struggles of others to make a dollar. And it comes off in poor taste, Pepsi. A lot of people are like, what are y'all doing? It just doesn't look right. And again, this kind of commercial could work if we lived in an ideal society where all those problems didn't happen. You know, then you could have that commercial, nobody would be mad. But people are getting shot at this very moment. You know, people are getting families are getting snatched apart by ICE at this moment, shipped over back. You know, they're busting in the neighborhoods where they think immigrants live. You know, you can go to a place like Arizona and they still have that law where if the neighbor feels that somebody isn't here legally, they can call the number and report them. So I mean, if there's a quinceañera in the backyard and the neighbor don't like nothing, you know, if the neighbor doesn't like anybody next door, he can call in and say, well, listen, there's about 40 of them over there in the backyard. I know at least 2 of them ain't supposed to be here. You know, that's the country we're currently living in. So you can't jump into this Kumbaya commercial until we've taken care of the real issues. Anyway, that's my 2 cents on the commercial. I had Pepsi, I don't know. Like, I love Pepsi too. That's my drink. I don't drink soda very often, but Pepsi is my drink of choice. So Pepsi, I need y'all to get it together. I really do. It's very interesting. And you know another thing really quick? This also reminds me that same, I'm going back to her passing this coat. It reminds me of every time you see these protests and you see somebody walking around talking about, oh, free hugs, and I'm like, here we go with this whole individualistic thing versus structural. Okay, all these people out here protesting police brutality or protesting whatever they're protesting, they're not protesting because they hate the other person. They're protesting because they hate the system or they hate the object that is affecting them in their life. They hate whatever it is they're fighting against. Not the people affected by it or the people who have to implement it. They hate the actual system that is oppressing them. So it's kind of like, I don't know if you guys have seen this picture. It was, I want to say it was around the time Mike Brown's situation was going on and Darren Wilson wasn't going to jail. And everybody's protesting and there's this little black boy who's crying. He has a sign that says free hugs. And the photographer gets a picture, gets a shot of him with the sign, and then he gets another shot of him hugging the police officer. And it went viral, and everybody, oh, this is the America we need. Everybody needs love. And then it turns out that really he was forced to carry that sign, forced to hug the police officer because, one, he was adopted. He had 2 white parents, and the white parents made him take that sign and go over there and hug that officer. And then you realize, one, he wasn't crying because he was so hurt that everybody was fighting. He was crying because he was terrified because every time he saw a black person go up to the police, they got knocked upside the head with a club or maced or tear gassed or beat up or arrested or whatever, and he was terrified. And you know, the adopted parents were like, Jeremiah, get over there now. And so that's how that picture came about. So that's pretty much the same thing. Those parents, even though they thought they were doing something good, because their lens is so blinded by the way that by their experience in the world, that they couldn't relate and understand why these thousands of people were out here protesting, they were like, oh, we'll fix this. Let's just give everybody hugs. You know, that's the stuff I'm talking about. Like Pepsi and everybody else who wants to be kumbaya, you should probably go and research why people are outraged about the things they're outraged about before you try to give your one solution fits all, okay? It's kind of like, actually, you know, this video is getting too long, but I want to say it's almost like when people go over to Africa and help build a school. That's really cool, but in order for the issues that are going on in Africa as far as the things going on economically, there needs to be a structural shift with how the world is exploiting Africa. The United States and Europe have to stop exploiting Africa in order for Africa to prosper. So us going over there and building a school wall or building a library for books, that's beautiful, but that's like giving a Band-Aid to somebody who needs a lung transplant. If you fix the larger problem, there won't be a reason for us to have to go over there and do that, okay? Africa's dealing with what they're dealing with because the United States and Europe are sucking up every resource they have, and Asia as well. But anyway, I really have to go. This video is too long. Subscribe, share your 2 cents, and that's it.